The stars looked peaceful from the bridge of the stellar dawn. Dr. Lisa Carter pressed her face against the window and smiled. After 3 months in space, she still loved watching the distant suns twinkle like diamonds. The research ship was small but comfortable, carrying 12 people on what should have been a simple mission. Any interesting readings today? Captain Jake Morrison asked as he walked onto the bridge. His coffee mug steamed in the recycled air. At 42, Jake had spent half his life in space, but he still found wonder in each new system they explored. Lisa turned from her instruments and shook her head. Just the usual. Some interesting mineral deposits on the third planet, but nothing that would change our lives. She was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life. So far, they had found plenty of rocks and gas, but no signs of life. Kepler 442 system was supposed to be empty. Earth's long-range sensors had detected nothing unusual here. That was why the Stellar Dawn was perfect for this job. It was a civilian ship with basic weapons and good sensors. Perfect for looking around and taking notes. Coffee, Jake offered, holding up his mug. Thanks, but I need to finish these scans first. Lisa turned back to her work. The screens showed normal readings from the nearby planets. Everything looked calm and boring, just the way they liked it. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Bob Taylor was fixing a small problem with the power systems. The Stellar Dawn was getting old, and small things broke every few days. Bob did not mind. He had been fixing ships for 20 years, and he knew every bolt and wire on this one. How long until we can head home? Asked Dr. Karen White, the team's geologist. She was young, and this was her first deep space mission. 3 months away from Earth was starting to feel like 3 years. 2 more weeks, Jake replied. I need to finish mapping the outer planets, then we can go home. Karen smiled. She missed her family and her small apartment on Mars. Space was amazing, but home was better. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft hum of computers and life support systems. The crew was relaxed. They had done this kind of work many times before. Map some planets, take some pictures, collect some samples, and go home. Simple and safe. That changed in an instant. Captain, Lisa's voice was sharp with worry. I'm getting massive energy readings from the edge of the system. No. Jake put down his coffee and hurried to her station. What kind of energy? I don't know. It's like nothing I've ever seen. Signatures are huge and getting bigger. Lisa's fingers flew over her controls. Captain, there are ships out there. Lots of them. The main screen flickered to life, showing the edge of the solar system. At first, there was nothing but empty space and distant stars. Then dots began to appear. 1 dot became 10. 10 became 50. 50 became hundreds. My God, whispered Karen. What are those? The dots were moving fast, much faster than any human ship could travel. As they got closer, the computer began to make sense of what it was seeing. These were not human ships. They were something else entirely. Red alert, Jake said quietly. His voice was calm, but his hands were shaking. All crew to stations. Lisa, can you get a better look at those ships? The main screen zoomed in on the approaching fleet. What they saw made everyone on the bridge go silent. The ships were long and dark, with sharp edges that looked like knives. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of deadly fish. There were over 800 of them, Lisa said in a whisper. Captain, they're not human. Bob's voice came over the intercom, from the engine room. Captain, should I start the jump drive? We can be out of here in 10 minutes. Before Jake could answer, every screen on the bridge lit up with the same message. It was written in perfect English, but the words felt cold and threatening. Attention, human vessel. You'll surrender immediately. Resistance will result in destruction. Prepare to be boarded. The alien fleet was still hours away, but somehow they were already talking to the Stellar Dawn. Their technology was far beyond anything humans had ever built. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the research vessel Stellar Dawn, Jake said into his communicator. We are a peaceful science ship. We mean no harm. The response came back immediately. Surrender is not optional, Eventured Space claimed. By the Vorthok Empire, your species will serve us or be destroyed. Lisa looked at Jake with wide eyes. Captain, I'm detecting weapon signatures on those ships. They have enough firepower to destroy a planet. Bob, start the jump drive now, Jake ordered. Karen, send a message to Earth. Tell them what we found. The next few minutes felt like hours. The alien ships kept getting closer while the Stellar Dawn's crew worked frantically to escape. The jump drive was old and slow, and it needed time to build up power. Jump drive at 60%, Bob reported. 5 more minutes. We don't have 5 minutes, Lisa said. The lead ships will be in weapons range in 3 minutes. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Garen, forget the regular message. Send out an emergency beacon. Full broadcast on all frequencies. Tell Earth that hostile aliens are coming, and they have a massive fleet. Karen's fingers flew over her keyboard. What should I tell them about the aliens? Everything. Ship types. Weapons, numbers, everything Lisa can give us. Jake turned to Lisa. How much time do we have? 2 minutes until they're in range? Captain, these ships. They're not here to explore. They're built for war. The emergency beacon went out just as the first alien ships came into weapons range. The message was simple but terrifying. This is the Stellar Dawn? We have encountered a hostile alien fleet of over 800 ships. They are heavily armed and heading for human space. They call themselves the Vorthok Empire. This may be our last transmission. The lead alien ship fired a single shot. It was not meant to destroy the Stellar Dawn, just to disable it. The energy beam hit the ship's engines, and all the lights went out. The jump drive died with a sound like breaking glass. Engines offline. Bob reported, We're dead in space. Jake stood up and straightened his uniform. All crew prepare for boarding. Hide any important data you can. If we don't make it home, someone else needs to know what we found here. The alien fleet surrounded the small human ship like wolves around a wounded deer. In the distance, more ships kept arriving. The Vorthok Empire was massive, and this was just the beginning. Dr. Lisa Carter looked at her instruments one last time. The readings showed something that made her blood run cold. The alien fleet was not just passing through. They were loaded with troops, weapons, and supplies. This was an invasion force, and they were heading straight for Earth. Captain, she said quietly, I don't think they're here by accident. I think they've been planning this for a long time. Jake nodded. Then we just gave Earth the warning they need. What? Let's hope it's enough. The first alien boarding craft attached to the Stellar Dawn with a sound like thunder. Low, heavy footsteps echoed through the ship's corridors. The crew of the Stellar Dawn stood together, knowing they might never see home again. But their message was already traveling through space at the speed of light, racing toward Earth with a warning that would change humanity forever. The Vorthok Empire was coming, and they thought humans would be easy prey. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The emergency beacon from the Stellar Dawn reached Earth's communications center at 3 a.m. local time. The night shift operator, a young woman named Mary Johnson, almost dismissed it as a false alarm. Deep space missions sometimes had equipment problems that sent out strange signals. But when she heard Captain Morrison's voice talking about hostile aliens and invasion fleets, Mary hit every alarm button she could find. Within minutes, the communication center was full of people in military uniforms, all talking at once. Admiral Patricia Hayes was asleep in her quarters when her phone rang. She had been commanding Earth's Space Defense Forces for 8 years, but she had never received a call like this one. The voice on the other end was shaking with fear. Admiral, we have a code black situation. An alien invasion fleet is heading for Earth. Patricia sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. How reliable is this information? The message came from the Stellar Dawn, a research ship in the Kepler system. They reported over 800 hostile alien ships. The transmission cut off after they were captured. I'll be there in 20 minutes, Patricia said. Was already putting on her uniform. Wake up the emergency council. Get me every ship captain we have, and somebody better wake up the president. The emergency meeting happened in a large room deep underground, protected by thick concrete and steel. President William Barnes looked tired but alert as he listened to the report. Around the table sat the most important military leaders on Earth. Let me make sure I understand this, the president said slowly. An alien empire with 800 warships is coming to invade Earth, and we found out because they captured one of our research ships. That's correct, sir, Admiral Hayes replied. The Stellar Dawn managed to send detailed scans before they were taken. The alien ships are larger and more advanced than anything we have. General Susan Clark, head of the Colonial Defense Forces, leaned forward. How long do we have? Based on the ship positions and their probable speed, maybe 72 hours, said Dr. Peter Adams, Earth's top scientist. Maybe less. The room went quiet. 72 hours to prepare for the biggest threat humanity had ever faced. President Barnes stood up. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a choice. We can run or we can fight. If we run, we abandon our people and our colonies. If we fight, we might all die. But at least we'll die as free humans. Mr. President, Admiral Hayes said, our chances of winning are not good. Their fleet is twice the size of ours, and their technology is more advanced. Then we'll have to be smarter and braver than they are, the President replied. Admiral, I want every human ship ready for battle. Every one. Sir, that includes civilian ships, merchant vessels, even private yachts. Most of them have no weapons. We have 3 days to turn every flying machine in human space into a warship. The next hours were the busiest. In human history, Admiral Hayes activated Protocol 7, the emergency plan that had never been used before. Every human ship, from massive military carriers to small cargo haulers, received the same message. Report for military service immediately. Humanity needs you. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Ship captains who had been delivering supplies to Mars turned around and headed for Earth. Pilots who had been mining asteroids abandoned their work and raced home. Even old ships that had been retired from service were pulled out of storage and prepared for battle. Captain Ryan Miller commanded the battleship Defiance, one of Earth's most powerful warships. He had been patrolling the outer colonies when the call came. Now he was pushing his ship's engines to their limits, trying to reach Earth before the aliens arrived. How many ships do we have so far? He asked his first officer, Lieutenant Amy. Rodriguez, the count keeps changing, sir. Last report was over 1,000 ships heading for Earth. More are coming every hour. Ryan shook his head in amazement. I've never seen anything like this. Every human in space is coming home to fight. On Mars, the shipyards worked day and night to add weapons to civilian ships. Welders and engineers who had never seen a gun before were installing missile launchers on cargo ships. The red planet glowed with the light of 1,000 welding torches. Dr. Elizabeth Torres, a weapons expert, was supervising the work at the main Mars shipyard. We don't have enough military weapons for all these ships, she told her team. We'll have to get creative. What do you mean? Asked her assistant, a young engineer named Danny Kim. Mining charges, construction lasers, even cargo manipulator. Arms? Anything that can damage an enemy ship. These merchants and miners know how to improvise. Let's give them the tools they need. Back on Earth, President Barnes addressed the world. Every human being on every planet and space station watched as their leader spoke. My fellow humans, he began, we face the greatest challenge in our history. An alien empire has threatened our people and our way of life. They think we are weak because we prefer peace to war. They think we will surrender because we are small compared to their mighty fleet. The president's voice grew stronger. They are wrong. We are not weak. We are not few. And we will never surrender our freedom to aliens who think they can enslave us. All across human space, people cheered. On Earth, on Mars, on the moons of Jupiter, in the asteroid belt, and on distant colonies. Humans stood up and declared their readiness to fight. The shipyards of Earth worked around the clock. The great orbital stations that usually built cargo ships and passenger liners were now making weapons and armor. Workers who had built peaceful machines were now creating tools of war. Jenny Parker, factory supervisor, had not slept in two days. Her team was building missile launchers as fast as they could. How many more do we need? She asked. All of them, replied her boss, Colonel Kevin Brooks. Every ship needs weapons, and every weapon needs to work perfectly. No second chances in space combat. The military training centers were full of civilian ship captains learning how to fight. These were people who had spent their lives hauling cargo or carrying passengers. They were learning tactics and weapon systems. The key to space combat is movement, explained Commander Lisa Sullivan to a group of merchant captains. Don't stay still. Don't fight fair. Use every advantage you can find. One of the captains, an older man named Frank Davis, raised his hand. Commander, my ship carries grain from the farm worlds. I've never fired a shot in anger. How am I supposed to fight trained alien warriors? The same way you've survived 20 years in space, Captain Davis. By being smart, careful, and never giving up. The aliens think we're soft because we're peaceful. Let's show them the difference between peaceful and helpless. Meanwhile, Admiral Hayes was coordinating the largest military operation in human history. Ships were arriving from everywhere, faster than her staff could count them. The space around Earth looked like a busy highway, with vessels of every size and type heading for their assigned positions. Admiral reported her aide, Commander Tony Mitchell, we have confirmation on final numbers. 1,400 ships. Ready for combat? Patricia Hayes looked at the display showing the gathering fleet. Massive battleships floated next to tiny patrol boats. Elegant passenger liners flew alongside rough mining ships. It was not the most organized fleet in history, but it was the most determined. Any word from our outer colonies? She asked. Yes. Ma'am, they're evacuating civilians but refusing to abandon their positions. Colonial Governor Janet Lewis sent a message. We're staying to fight. Send us weapons. Admiral Hayes smiled grimly. Send them everything we can spare, and tell Governor Lewis that the cavalry is coming. In the Intelligence Center, analysts were studying every detail of the alien fleet that the Stellar Dawn had managed to record. The Vorthok ships were impressive, but they were not invincible. Their formation is very rigid, observed Captain Helen Foster, the intelligence chief. They fly in perfect patterns like they're in a parade. That might be a weakness we can exploit. What about their weapons? Asked Admiral Hayes. Powerful. But they seem to rely on overwhelming force rather than precision. They're used to fighting enemies who run away quickly. Well, they're about to meet enemies who don't run away at all. The president made one final announcement as the alien fleet was detected entering the outer solar system. Citizens of humanity, our ships are ready. Our people are united. In a few hours we will face an enemy that threatens everything we hold dear, but we will not face them alone. We'll face them together, as one human family. He paused, looking directly into the camera. To the aliens who think they can conquer us, you picked the wrong species. Earth does not surrender. Earth does not kneel. Earth protects its own. All across the solar system, human ships prepared for battle. Families said goodbye to their loved ones. Engineers made final checks on weapon systems. Captains reviewed their battle plans one last time. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Miller looked at his crew. They were scared, but they were ready. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to write history. Let's make sure it's a story our children will be proud to tell. The alien fleet was less than 12 hours away, but they would not find the helpless humans they expected. They would find 1,400 ships crewed by people who refused to give up their freedom. The greatest battle in human history was about to begin. While the main human fleet prepared for the coming battle, a smaller group had a different mission. Captain Ryan Miller stood in the briefing room of his ship, the Defiance, looking at a dozen of the best soldiers humanity had to offer. Our job is simple, he said. Get in, rescue the crew of the Stellar Dawn, and get out. The main fleet will handle the big battle. We'll handle the rescue. Commander Amy Rodriguez, his second-in-command, pointed to the holographic display showing the alien fleet. The prisoners are being held on the command ship right in the center of their formation. That's the most heavily defended ship in their entire fleet. Which is why they won't expect us to attack it, Miller replied. We'll use the Ghostwind, our newest stealth ship. Small, fast, and nearly invisible to their sensors. Tenant. Colonel Kevin Brooks, an expert on alien technology, studied the scans from the Stellar Dawn. According to this data, the Vorthok ships have powerful shields, but they're designed to stop large attacks. A small ship might be able to slip through. The Ghostwind was unlike any other human ship. It was black as space itself, with special coating that absorbed radar and energy scans. Only 30 people could fit inside, but those 30 were the best rescue specialists, and the human military commander, Amy Rodriguez, would lead the boarding team. She had spent 10 years rescuing people from pirates and disasters. This would be her most dangerous mission ever, but she was ready. "How do we know the prisoners are still alive?" asked Sergeant Tony Blake, the team's demolitions expert. "We don't," Miller admitted, "but we have to try. These people risked their lives to warn us about the invasion. We don't abandon our own." The Ghost Wind left the main fleet 12 hours before the battle was scheduled to begin. It flew in complete silence, using gravity to move instead of engines that might give away their position. The journey to the alien fleet would take 8 hours. Inside the cramped ship, the rescue team prepared their equipment. They had studied everything the Stellar Dawn had recorded about Vorthok technology, but much of it was still a mystery. "Their doors use magnetic locks," explained Corporal Lisa Chen, the team's tech specialist. "I've built devices that should be able to open them, but I won't know for sure until we try." "What about their weapons?" asked Sergeant Maria Santos, energy-based. "Similar to our plasma rifles, but more powerful. Their armor is tough, but not perfect. Aim for the joints and faceplates." Captain Miller monitored their approach from the bridge. The alien fleet was enormous, stretching across millions of kilometers of space. In the center, like a deadly jewel, sat the command ship. It was 5 times larger than any human vessel, covered in weapons and armor. "There," said Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker, the ship's navigator. "I'm detecting a small docking bay on the underside of the command ship. It's designed for maintenance craft, not major traffic. Their security might be lighter there. That's our way in," Miller decided. "Amy, are your people ready?" "Ready as we'll ever be," Rodriguez replied. "Give us 30 minutes inside then. Get ready to run. This ship won't survive a direct fight with that monster."
The Ghost Wind
approached the alien command ship like a shadow. The Vorthok sensors passed right over it, unable to detect the small human vessel. Miller held his breath as they drifted closer to the docking bay. "No guards visible," reported the pilot, Lieutenant Sarah Kim. "The bay is open. It can get us inside. But once we dock, we're committed." "Do it," Miller ordered. The Ghost Wind slipped into the alien docking bay like a knife into its sheath. The bay was huge, designed for ships much larger than theirs. Strange alien machinery lined the walls, and the air glowed with an eerie green light. Rodriguez's team moved out immediately. They had studied the ship's layout based on the Stellar Dawn scans, but being inside the actual vessel was different. The corridors were tall and narrow, built for beings larger than humans. "This way," whispered Chen, checking her scanner. "The prison level should be 3 decks down." They moved through the ship like ghosts, avoiding the main corridors where alien crew members might spot them. The Vorthok were tall, thin creatures with gray skin and large eyes. They moved with a strange grace, like dancers or predators. "I count 12 Vorthok guards between us and the prison level," Rodriguez reported quietly into her radio.
Nice.
"We'll have to take them out silently." The human soldiers were experts at this kind of work. They moved from shadow to shadow, using stun weapons to disable guards without raising an alarm. The Vorthok never knew what hit them. The prison level was exactly where the scans had indicated. But what the humans found there was worse than they had expected. The Stellar Dawn crew was locked in small cells, but they were not alone. "My God," whispered Santos. "There must be 200 prisoners here." The prison held beings from 6 different species. Some looked almost human, while others were completely alien. All of them had one thing in common. They were slaves of the Vorthok Empire. Dr. Lisa Carter was in the first cell they found. She looked tired and scared, but her eyes lit up when she saw the human soldiers. "You came for us," she whispered. "I can't believe you actually came." "We don't leave people behind," Rodriguez replied, working on the cell lock. "Where's Captain Morrison?" "2 cells down. He's been helping coordinate resistance among the other prisoners. The Vorthok have been taking people from dozens of worlds." "Captain." Morrison was indeed organizing the other prisoners. When the humans found him, He was teaching a group of aliens how to disable Vorthok's stun weapons. "About time you got here," he said with a weak smile. "I was starting to think I'd have to break out of here myself."
Can you walk?
Rodriguez asked. "Try and stop me, but we can't leave the others. These people have been slaves for years. Some of them have children in other parts of the ship." Rodriguez spoke into her radio. "Captain Miller, we have a problem. There are hundreds of prisoners here, not just our people. Can't rescue them all with one small ship." Miller's voice came back immediately. "How long do you need to get everyone?" "Hours. Maybe all day. We don't have hours. The main battle starts in 6 hours." Dr. Carter grabbed Rodriguez's arm. "Commander, I learned something important while I was here. The Vorthok command structure is completely centralized. If something happens to their command ship, their entire fleet becomes confused and disorganized. What are you suggesting?" "Ship's main computer core is just 2 levels up from here. If we could plant explosives there," Lieutenant Colonel Brooks, who had been listening, stepped forward. "That would work. Destroy their command center, and their fleet coordination collapses. But someone would have to stay behind to set off the charges." The rescue team looked at each other. They all knew what that meant. Whoever stayed behind would not be coming home. "I'll do it," Morrison said immediately. "I'm the one who got us into this mess." "No," said Carter. "I know their computer systems better than anyone. I can make sure the charges are placed correctly." "Nobody's staying behind," Rodriguez said firmly. "We came here to rescue people, not to create more heroes." "Brooks, how long do you need to plant charges that will blow in a timer?" Brooks checked his equipment. 20 minutes to place them, another 10 to get back to the ship. "But we need time to get all these prisoners to the docking bay." Rodriguez made a command decision. "Chen, Santos, Blake, get all the prisoners moving toward the docking bay. Use the service corridors to avoid patrols. Morrison, Carter, you're with me and Brooks. We're going to plant these charges and get out of here." The next 30 minutes were the longest of their lives. The human soldiers moved through the alien ship like a precision machine, each person knowing exactly what to do. The freed prisoners followed quietly, understanding that their lives depended on silence. Brooks worked on the computer core while Rodriguez and Morrison kept watch. The Vorthok computer systems were advanced, but they followed logical patterns that humans could understand. "These charges will take out the entire core," Brooks whispered. "The timer is set for 15 minutes. That should give us enough time to get clear." They were almost back to the docking bay when disaster struck. A Vorthok patrol discovered the unconscious guards and raised the alarm. Suddenly, the entire ship was full of flashing lights and alien voices. "Run!" Rodriguez shouted. The rescue team and freed prisoners raced through the corridors as Vorthok soldiers poured out of every doorway. Energy bolts filled the air, scorching the walls around them. Sergeant Blake turned to face the pursuing aliens. "Go. I'll hold them off." "Blake, no!" Rodriguez called. "Get these people out of here. That's an order." Blake opened fire with his assault rifle. Forcing the Vorthok to take cover, the Ghostwine's engines were already running when the rescue team reached the docking bay. The freed prisoners poured into the ship as fast as they could move. Some of them had never seen a human vessel before, but they understood that this was their chance for freedom. "Where's Blake?" Miller asked as Rodriguez boarded. "He didn't make it," she replied, her voice tight with emotion. "But he bought us the time we needed." The Ghost Wind launched just as Vorthok security forces reached the docking bay. The small ship raced away from the command vessel with energy, bolts lighting up the space around it. 10 minutes until the charges blow, Brooks reported behind them. The massive Vorthok command ship was already trying to scan for intruders, but it was too late. The human rescue team had done their job. Dr. Carter sat in the Ghost Wind's medical bay, surrounded by freed prisoners from half a dozen worlds. "You people," she said to one of the human soldiers, "you're completely insane. You attacked the most heavily defended ship in their fleet just to rescue us." "That's what humans do," the soldier replied. "We don't leave people behind." When the charges exploded, the Vorthok command ship's entire computer core vanished in a ball of fire. All across the alien fleet, ships suddenly found themselves without orders, without coordination, without central command. The rescue had succeeded. But more importantly, it had given the human fleet the advantage they needed for the coming battle. The Vorthok were about to learn that underestimating humans was a deadly mistake. On the bridge of the Ghostwind, Captain Miller watched the alien fleet's formation begin to break. Apart as individual ships tried to figure out what to do without orders from their commanders. "Signal the main fleet," he ordered. "Tell Admiral Hayes that the Vorthok command structure is down. Now's our chance." The greatest battle in human history was about to begin, and thanks to the courage of a few brave soldiers, humanity now had a fighting chance. The human fleet faced the Vorthok armada at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, where everything had started. Admiral Patricia Hayes stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Enterprise, watching 1,400 human ships prepare for the fight of their lives. Next to her, Captain Jake Morrison studied the enemy formation through the main display.
After
His rescue from the Vorthok command ship, he had insisted on staying for the battle. "It made this personal when they attacked my crew," he had told the Admiral. "I'm seeing this through to the end." Dr. Lisa Carter was also on the bridge, her knowledge of Vorthok technology too valuable to waste. She pointed to the enemy ships on the screen. "Their formation is breaking down because we destroyed their command center, but they still have over 700 ships. Each one is more powerful than our best battleship." The Vorthok fleet looked like a swarm of deadly insects hanging in space. Their ships were dark and angular, built for war and nothing else. Even damaged and confused, they were terrifying. Sight Admiral Hayes opened a communication channel to the entire human fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Hayes. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for the freedom of every human being in the galaxy. The enemy thinks we are weak because we prefer peace to war. Let's show them how wrong they are." Across the fleet, 1,400 captains acknowledged the order. These were merchant sailors, military officers, mining ship pilots, and passenger liner captains. None of them had asked for this fight, but all of them were ready. The Vorthok response came from their lead ship, broadcast on all frequencies. The voice was cold and mechanical, translated by computer from their alien language. "Humans of Earth, you have interfered with Vorthok operations and damaged our property. Surrender immediately, and we will make your deaths quick. Continue to resist, and we will hunt down every human in the galaxy." Admiral Hayes smiled grimly and opened her own broadcast channel. "This is Admiral Patricia Hayes of the United Earth Defense Force. You came to our space uninvited. You attacked our people. You threatened our home. Today you learn why that was the biggest mistake your empire ever made." The battle began with the Vorthok launching the first attack. Hundreds of energy beams lanced out from their ships, targeting the largest human vessels. The space between the two fleets lit up like a deadly fireworks display. Captain Ryan Miller, commanding the Defiance, led the first human counterattack. "All fighters, follow me in. Hit their flanking ships and break up their formation." 50 small human fighters dove toward the Vorthok fleet like angry wasps. They were fast and hard to hit, darting between the larger ships and firing at weak points Dr. Carter had identified. "Their shield generators are on the top of each ship." Carter's voice came over the radio. "If you can hit those, their armor becomes vulnerable." The human fighters swarmed around the Vorthok ships, too small and quick for the aliens' heavy weapons to target effectively. One by one, alien shield generators exploded under the concentrated fire, but the Vorthok fought back hard. Their ships were more powerful than anything humans had ever faced. The battleship Yorktown, one of Earth's finest warships, took a direct hit from a Vorthok heavy cruiser and exploded in a ball of fire. "We're losing ships too fast," reported Commander Amy Rodriguez from the rescue ship Ghostwind. "We need a new strategy." Captain Morrison studied the battle through the Enterprise's sensors. "Admiral, I have an idea. The Vorthok fly in rigid formations because that's how they're trained, but we don't have to fight fair. What are you thinking, Captain? Look at their fleet positioning. They're trying to surround us, but they're leaving gaps. If we could get a small group of ships through one of those gaps," double quotes, Admiral Hayes understood immediately. "Strike at their heavy command ships while they're focused on our main fleet." "Exactly. I'll take 20 of our fastest ships and hit them from behind while you keep them busy from the front." It was a desperate plan, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Morrison transferred to the fast cruiser Liberty and gathered 19 other ships around him. They were a mix of military vessels and converted civilian craft, but they were all crewed by people willing to risk everything. The strike force waited until the main battle reached its peak intensity. The space between the two fleets was full of explosions and energy beams. Both sides were taking heavy losses, but the humans were running out of ships faster than the aliens. "Now," Morrison ordered. The 20 human ships dove toward a gap in the Vorthok formation, flying so close together they almost touched. The aliens were so focused on the main battle that they didn't notice the small force until it was too late. Morrison's ships punched through the Vorthok rear line and immediately attacked their largest vessels. These were the ships that carried the most weapons and caused the most damage. Taking them out could change the entire battle. Target the ship with the most antenna arrays, Dr. Carter advised over the radio. That's probably their backup command vessel. The converted cargo ship New Hope, armed with mining lasers and explosive charges, rammed directly into the alien command ship's bridge section. Captain Helen Foster had volunteered for the suicide mission, knowing her sacrifice could save thousands of human lives. "Or Earth," were her last words as the New Hope exploded, taking the Vorthok command ship with it. The destruction of their second command vessel threw the alien fleet into complete chaos. Individual Vorthok ships began fighting without coordination, some retreating while others advanced. Their perfect formation collapsed into scattered groups. "All ships, press the attack," Admiral Hayes ordered. "They're breaking apart." The human fleet, despite being smaller and less advanced, had something the Vorthok didn't understand: the willingness to sacrifice everything for each other. Every human ship fought not just for victory, but for the people beside them. Lieutenant Colonel Kevin Brooks, commanding a squadron of converted passenger liners, led his ships in a desperate charge against a group of Vorthok heavy cruisers. "Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human child who deserves to grow up free." His ships were outgunned and outarmored, but they fought with a fury that surprised the aliens. The passenger liner Star Princess, designed to carry tourists between planets, now bristled with makeshift weapons as it traded fire with a Vorthok warship 3 times its size. The battle raged for 6 hours. Ships on both sides were destroyed, their crews lost to the cold vacuum of space. But slowly, gradually, the tide began to turn in humanity's favor. The Vorthok had expected an easy victory over a primitive species. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to surrender, refused to retreat, and refused to give up hope. Captain Tony Mitchell, commanding the destroyer Courage, found himself face to face with the Vorthok Fleet Admiral's personal ship. It was massive, bristling with weapons, and protected by the strongest shields in the alien fleet. "This is for the Stellar Dawn," Mitchell said quietly, and opened fire with everything his ship had. The destroyer was destroyed in the exchange, but not before its final missile salvo penetrated the Vorthok Admiral's shields. The alien flagship began to burn, its commander dead, its crew scattered. With their fleet admiral gone and their command structure completely destroyed, the remaining Vorthok ships began to retreat, but Admiral Hayes had no intention of letting them escape. "All ships, pursue," she ordered. "Every alien vessel that participated in this attack on human civilians will be destroyed. No exceptions." What followed was not a battle, but a hunt. The human fleet, reduced to fewer than 800 ships, chased the fleeing Vorthok across the star system. Some aliens tried to surrender, but there would be no mercy for an empire built on slavery and conquest. Dr. Carter, monitoring the alien communications, reported what she was hearing. "Admiral, they're calling for reinforcements. They're telling their empire that humans are more dangerous than expected." Good Hayes replied, "Let them spread the word. Let every alien empire in the galaxy know what happens when you threaten Earth." The battle ended 12 hours after it began. Of the 800 Vorthok ships that had come to conquer humanity, fewer than 50 escaped. The space around Kepler, 442, was filled with the wreckage of both fleets, a monument to the day humanity proved it would not go quietly into slavery. Captain Morrison, the ship badly damaged but still flying, opened a channel to the surviving human fleet. "This is Jake Morrison. We did it. We actually did it." The celebration was brief. The human fleet had won, but at a terrible cost. Nearly 600 ships had been destroyed, with thousands of brave people lost. Every surviving vessel was damaged, and many barely had enough power to make it home. But they had sent a message that would echo across the galaxy. Humanity was not prey. They were protectors, fighters, and survivors. Any alien species that threatened human civilians would face the full might of a people who refused to kneel. Admiral Hayes looked at the tactical display showing their victory. The Vorthok invasion fleet was destroyed, but this was just the beginning. Word of the battle would spread, and humanity would need to be ready for whatever came next. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "Set course for Earth. We're going home." As the battered human fleet began its journey back to Earth, they carried with them not just victory, but proof that even the smallest species could stand up to the largest. Empire, if they had the courage to fight for what they believed in. The Battle of Kepler's Gate was over. Humanity had won. The galaxy would never be the same. 5 years had passed since the Battle of Kepler's Gate, and the galaxy was a very different place. The news of humanity's victory over the Vorthok Empire had spread like wildfire, inspiring enslaved species across known space to rise up against their oppressors. Dr. Lisa Carter, now Director of Xenological Affairs for the Terran Federation, stood in her office on Earth, looking out at the bustling spaceport. Ships from dozens of different species came and went daily, carrying trade goods, diplomatic messages, and new citizens seeking freedom under human protection. Director Carter, her assistant, a young Zilani named Kekstar, entered the office. With a datapad, the Zilani were one of the first species to join the Federation after being freed from Vorthok slavery. "The delegation from the Altarian Republic has arrived. They're requesting membership in the Federation." Lisa smiled. The Altarians were a proud warrior race that had fought the Vorthok for centuries before finally being conquered. When they heard that humans had destroyed an entire invasion fleet, they immediately declared their independence and asked to join Earth's growing alliance. "Tell them I'll meet with them this afternoon," Lisa said, "and send a message to Admiral Morrison. He'll want to hear about this." Admiral Jake Morrison was now in command of the Frontier Defense Force, the military arm of the Terran Federation. His job was to protect the growing alliance of free worlds from any remaining threats. He was currently aboard his flagship, the New Stellar Dawn, patrolling the borders of Federation space. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a distress signal from the Corvin system. It's the same type of signal that started this whole thing 5 years ago." Morrison's expression grew serious. The Corvins were a peaceful species that had joined the Federation just 2 years earlier. If someone was attacking them, it was an attack on all Federation members. "Set course for the Corvin system, maximum speed," Morrison ordered. "And send a message to Earth. Tell them we might have another situation." The New Stellar Dawn was much larger and more advanced than the original research vessel that bore its name. It was part of the new generation of human ships, built with technology learned from their alien allies and captured from defeated enemies. When Morrison's ship arrived in the Corvin system, they found a small fleet of ships attacking Corvin colonies. But these weren't Vorthok vessels. They belonged to the Hegemony, another alien empire that specialized in taking over primitive worlds. "This is Admiral Morrison of the Terran Federation Defense Force." He broadcast to the attacking ships, who are attacking Federation citizens. "Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The Hegemony commander's response was arrogant and dismissive. "Humans, you have no authority in this region. The Corvins will serve the Hegemony, as is proper for an inferior species." Morrison sighed. "Some aliens never learned. All ships, battle stations. It seems we need to teach another lesson about threatening Federation citizens." The battle was short and decisive. The Hegemony ships were advanced, but they had made the same mistake as the Vorthok. They had underestimated human determination and overestimated their own superiority. Within 2 hours, the Hegemony fleet was destroyed, and the Corvin colonies were safe. Word of the battle spread quickly, adding to humanity's growing reputation as protectors of the weak and enemies of oppression. Back on Earth, President William Barnes was meeting with the Federation Council, a group of representatives from 37 different species. The human president still served as the Federation's leader, but major decisions were made by the full council. The hegemony attack on the Corvins shows that we still face threats, Barnes said to the assembled delegates. But it also shows that our defense strategy is working. No Federation world stands alone. Ambassador Tessara of the Aquatic Peoples raised a webbed hand. President Barnes, my people's ocean worlds have been safe from attack since joining the Federation. The mere presence of human patrol ships seems to discourage aggressive neighbors. That's the idea, Barnes replied. Peace through strength, and strength through unity. The Federation had grown far beyond what anyone had imagined 5 years earlier. What started as humanity's desperate fight for survival had become a galactic alliance dedicated to freedom and mutual protection. On Mars, shipyards that had once frantically converted civilian vessels into warships now built advanced spacecraft for Federation members. Human engineers worked alongside alien scientists, sharing knowledge and creating technologies that neither species could have developed alone. Jenny Parker, who had supervised weapons production during the Vorthok crisis, now managed a facility that built peaceful exploration ships. It's amazing, she told her team. 5 years ago, we were building weapons to destroy an invasion fleet. Now we're building ships to explore new worlds and make new friends. The Vorthok Empire itself had collapsed completely after their defeat at Kepler's Gate. Their remaining territory was divided among the species they had once enslaved, with Federation peacekeepers ensuring that the transition to freedom was orderly and fair. Commander Amy Rodriguez, now a general in the Federation Marines, oversaw one of these transition operations on a former Vorthok slave world. The planet's population included survivors from dozens of different species, all learning to live together as free beings. The general, reported Colonel Tony Blake, who had survived his heroic stand on the Vorthok command ship and was now Rodriguez's second in command. The Planetary Council has requested full Federation membership. They want human guarantees of protection, proved Rodriguez said without hesitation. Make sure they understand that Federation membership comes with responsibilities as well as benefits. They'll need to contribute to our common defense. Galaxy had learned that humanity's strength came not from superior technology or numbers, but from their refusal to abandon their principles. When humans said we protect our own, they meant every being under Federation protection, regardless of species or origin. Dr. Carter often thought about the crew of the original Stellar, Dawn and their desperate distress signal that had started. Everything, their sacrifice had not been in vain. They had not just warned Earth of an invasion, they'd triggered the birth of a galactic federation dedicated to freedom and justice. A memorial to the fallen heroes of Kepler's Gate stood in the center of New Geneva, Earth's capital. The inscription was simple but powerful. They came for our people, came for them all. Children from dozens of species played in the memorial park, their laughter echoing off the monument's marble walls. Human children played alongside young Zilani, Corvin, and Altarian beings, learning that diversity was strength and friendship was possible between any species. Admiral Hayes, now retired and serving as Dean of the Federation Military Academy, often brought her students to the memorial. Remember this, she would tell them. We didn't become protectors because we were the strongest or the smartest. We became protectors because we refused to let innocent people suffer when we had the power to help them. On the outer rim of Federation space, patrol ships maintained constant watch for new threats. The galaxy was vast, and there were always aggressive species looking for weak targets. But now there was a difference. Attackers had to consider whether their intended victims might have human allies willing to travel across the galaxy to help Captain Ryan Miller, now commanding the exploration vessel Pioneer, was investigating reports of a new alien empire threatening several independent worlds. His ship was no longer just human crewed. Federation vessels carried mixed crews, representing the diversity of their alliance. Captain, his Altarian tactical officer, reported. Long-range sensors detect a fleet of unknown ships approaching the Gamma Centauri system. Configuration suggests hostile intent. Miller smiled. It was the same kind of smile Admiral Hayes had worn before the Battle of Kepler's Gate. Signal the Federation fleet. Tell them we have another situation requiring attention. Should we wait for reinforcements, sir? Asked his human first officer. Send the signal first, Miller replied. But we're not waiting. There are innocent people down there who need help now. That's what we do. The Pioneer raced toward Gamma Centauri, followed by the rest of the Federation patrol fleet. Once again, humanity and its allies were rushing to help people they had never met. Simply because it was the right thing to do. Word of this new crisis reached Earth within hours. President Barnes activated the Federation response protocols, and ships from 37 different worlds began moving toward the threatened system. The message was clear. Attack one Federation world, and you face them all, in the Memorial Park on Earth. An old veteran named Frank Davis sat on a bench watching the children play. He had been a grain hauler during the Vorthok crisis, one of the civilian captains who had answered Earth's call for help. Now he was a retired admiral in the Federation fleet. A young human girl approached him, her classmates from various species following behind. "Admiral Davis," she said. "Our teacher says you were at the Battle of Kepler's Gate. Is it true that you helped save the galaxy?" Frank smiled and looked at the diverse group of children. "We all did, little one. Every human who answered the call, every being who chose freedom over slavery, every person who refuses to let bullies win. The galaxy isn't saved by one battle or one species. It's saved by ordinary people choosing to do extraordinary things." As the sun set over Earth, the memorial's eternal flame flickered in the evening breeze. Above them, Federation ships continued their patrol routes, carrying crews from dozens of worlds united in their commitment to protecting freedom throughout the galaxy. The distress signal from the stellar dawn had been answered, not just by Earth's military, but by the full might of humanity's compassion, determination, and refusal to abandon those in need. What began as a desperate call for help had become a beacon of hope for oppressed beings throughout the galaxy. The message was simple and clear. No one fights alone. No one suffers in silence, and no bully, no matter how large or powerful, can stand against people united in the cause of freedom. Humanity had kept its promise. When someone sent an SOS, Earth brought the full might of humanity. And now, the full might of humanity included friends and allies from across the stars, all united in the belief that freedom was worth fighting for. The galaxy was a safer place, because of a small research ship and its brave crew who had refused to stay silent in the face of evil. Their legacy lived on in every Federation ship, every protected world, and every child who grew up free because someone had been willing to answer the call for help. In the end, that was humanity's greatest strength, not their weapons or their ships, but their unwavering commitment to the simple truth that everyone deserves to be free.